At Home with Hayley. This is, of course, a Halloween special. Gone are the days where I dress up as, and thank you for some of the suggestions that some of you had, but gone are the days where I dress up as a sexy cat or a zombie nurse. I'm a pumpkin these days. But I'm quite happy to be a pumpkin. I'm ecstatic to be here with you today, guys. If you can just pop into the chat box that you can hear me okay, that would be awesome. I can see you guys are coming through. Can everybody hear me okay? Brilliant. Morning, Laura. Happy birthday to your mom as well. Elaine, I think, is it Elaine? So happy birthday to Elaine. I hope you have a fantastic day. And hopefully you're listening in, or actually we'll let you off and you can watch the replay on YouTube. But morning, guys. It is Friday. It is a Halloween special. We have an awesome guest for you today. I'm really excited to watch his slot. I know I say this every week, but I really am excited to watch his slot. So guys, as you can hear me and we're all loud and clear, I'm going to jump straight into our update. It is a short update. There really hasn't been anything that's exciting this week that has changed dramatically, the update from last week. So we'll have a short update and then we will jump into our very special guest. So guys, economic statement then. UK house prices increased by 2.5% in the year of August 2020, up from 2.1% in July 2020. On a non-seasonally adjusted basis, average house prices in the UK increased by 0.7% between July 2020 and August 2020, compared with a rise of 0.3% during the same period a year earlier, so July 2019 and August 2019. House price growth was strongest in England, where prices increased by 2.8% in the year to August 2020. The highest annual growth within the English regions was the East Midlands, where average house prices grew by 3.6%, which is massive. The lowest annual growth was in the North East, where prices increased by 0.2% in the year to August 2020. The Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, so RICS, August 2020 UK Residential Market Survey, results reveal that the sales market continues to show strong momentum. Even if the long-term views remain cautious, and, you know, we've spoken about this week in, week out, obviously looking at lending, criteria changing and things like that, there is caution in the air. Anyway, national house price growth indicators hit a 4-year high, and most respondents foresee demand increasing for homes with gardens over the next 2 years. So they're predicting that there is still going to be good demand for certain types of properties in certain areas, and gardens is very much on the top of the list there. The Bank of England's agents summary of business conditions. So this is 2020 Q3, reported a buoyant activity supported by the restricted demand during lockdown. Temporary cuts in stamp duty and the Help to Buy scheme for first-time buyers has, of course, encouraged all of that. The UK property transaction statistics showed that in August 2020, on a seasonally adjusted basis, the estimated number of transactions of residential properties with a value of £40,000 or greater was 81,280. This is 16.3% lower than a year ago, between July 2020 and August 2020. UK transactions increased by 15.6% on a seasonally adjusted basis. And then looking at this is a little bit different to what we normally cover, but looking at the UK real retail prices. So the British Retail Consortium, so the BRC, the UK's leading retail trade association, announced yesterday that retail prices are dropping at their lowest pace since the outbreak of the pandemic, signifying some confidence from retailers that shoppers once again have an appetite for spending in their stores. Average prices of non-food goods fell by 1.2% in October compared to the same period last year, down from a fall of 1.6% in September. When compared with September 2019. The BRC also confirmed that the volume of non-food purchases rose to the highest level since before the pandemic, despite positivity, though the Trades Association warned of a likely rise in retailers' purchase costs if a deal is not reached with the EU, squeezing profit margins even further. Whilst all expecting retail prices to continue to drop, but at a more modest rate, the foreseeable future. So despite a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, so we can definitely see it, the news wasn't enough to support the pound. In the face of rising anti-lockdown protests across much of Europe, France looks set to re-enter a nationwide lockdown, with the President Emmanuel expected to address the nation this evening. Actually, not this evening. This was actually yesterday. So France is the second largest contributor to the Eurozone's gross domestic product output. So the news has added a degree of pressure on the shared currency, which dropped over a cent from Thursday's highs against greenback. Against the greenback. The pound is beginning to face a similar headwinds as pressure from the government's medical advisor rises on Prime Minister Boris to increase restriction levels across the UK. The FTSE 100 dropped to its lowest level for 6 months yesterday due to the uncertainty as to what measures may be implemented. The pound dipped into the 1.29 once again this morning, currently resting at the lower end of the recent tight trading range against Americans and American cousins. So guys, that's a little update there. So you can kind of see we're still going strong. It's still there. There's very much caution in the air. Just to kind of break down what I've just spoken about, house prices are still holding. I have noticed that there's a lot of people, especially locally to me here, so in the West Midlands, Wolverhampton area, that there's a lot of properties that are being taken off the market. I've been speaking to a few estate agents. There's quite a few sales that are falling through as well. So because of the demand from people actually moving home, people are finding themselves in quite big chains. Now, as investors, we very much try to stay away from chains, but we are in competition with people out there buying their homes, which is what's pushed up the house prices. But as a result of that, we've got a lot of chains that are falling through, and there's some quite large chains as well that I've been talking to the estate agents about and the solicitors as well. So although the process is going through and lending is coming through, although it's taking longer, so the lending is actually still holding its end of the bargain. It's just taking longer to get to that position. Which was why we spoke last week about allowing, a longer period of time to complete on any properties. So from offer to completion, looking at least 3 months there. But guys, there's still very much a buoyant market. The house prices are holding. UK real estate is very much what many people are looking to invest in, especially with the looming threat of negative interest rates and things like that. I was just talking to James, who's our guest prior to this, saying that I need to be putting my money elsewhere, and I'm waiting for a project to come through, and I'm going to have to look at taking money out of accounts to invest fairly quickly. So guys, we're all looking to get our money into property. It's a good, solid investment, and it remains a good, solid investment. From a rental perspective, the demand is still very high. My portfolio is running at 98% occupancy. That is very much down to the management companies that take care of my portfolio, but the demand of tenants and the number of applications that we're getting through for each listing is very, very high. So overall, guys, it's, you know, it's, you're buying at a premium price, but the demand is there. If you're buying now before November, then you're still likely to be able to take advantage of the stamp duty tax break. So there's still opportunity for you to get in on the deals there. I understand a lot of you are actually holding off, and many of you that have less than £100,000 are finding it difficult. And that's why we have our next guest that perhaps can talk to us about some of the projects that he's been working on, and joint venturing with other investors, sharing the risk and getting the experience on commercial and commercial to residential developments and larger HMO projects as well. So that being said, guys, I am just going to pop on here and I'm going to pop my camera on. Didn't realize my camera was off. You know, you've got to see my lovely outfit. Big fat pumpkin. James, are you there? So guys, we have James Egan, who is an unbelievable sourcing agent. I've known James for a number of years, and he's worked through various different platforms and worked quite closely with internationals investing here in the UK. So he's very much, I'm very confident to hand you over to him. James is with British Living Group, but James, can you hear me okay?
Yep, all loud and clear.
Let's have a look at your neck. So James obviously, James obviously answered back to his wife this morning, and that's why he has a slit throat. The happy wife, happy life, isn't it, really? And there's no truer fact. So James, do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners, for those of you that don't know you, and just tell us what you are here today to talk about?
Yeah, well, thanks, Hayley. Well, as Hayley's given in that brilliant introduction, you know, we've primarily been focusing on HMOs the last few years, residential houses converting into HMOs. Brilliant strategy, still arguably one of the highest yielding strategies to grow cash flow. But as times have changed recently, we've had to start shifting that focus to where there's stock available. And as Hayley alluded to, you know, the market is really quite unpredictable at the moment as to what's going to become available for sale. And obviously our jobs as sourcing agents is to find the things for you guys to buy. So we've obviously always got to keep abreast of what stock's available in which different areas, and obviously the price brackets they sit in as well. So as the normal residential market's changed, we've sort of shifted our focus to commercial property. Obviously the economy here has taken a big hit. There's really been a lot of upset amongst multiple different sectors, and obviously that's having a knock-on effect through people's jobs and obviously people being laid off and furloughed. But it hasn't really taken a big effect on house prices yet. Obviously we've seen a bit of change across the country. Obviously different areas have been affected differently, but certainly in the Midlands, prices have continued to grow. So obviously that's good news if you're selling, bad news if you're buying.
Absolutely.
And as Hayley said as well, the price brackets where generally you pick up, you know, you're generally like your first investment homes, that 40 grand bracket up to, well, there's not many houses in the Midlands for 40 grand, but if you look at the typical purchase category here of say 60 to about 80, where a lot of people aim for their first buy-to-lets or say a small 4-bed HMO, that category has got so much competition now from other local investors, amateur investors who've had cash sitting in the bank, who are now panicking to just get rid of it and will just buy anything that comes to the market and overpay. And we've almost lost that sector for investing in, because there are so many people coming in uneducated, overpaying, and obviously increasing the competition massively for us.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we spoke week in, week out, so about just the unbelievable demand, and you know, I've been gazumped and lost 3 this year so far, which is ridiculous. It never happens to me normally, but it really is. The competition is really high, and what I've said to many people always ask the question: do we wait? Now we can make money in any market, but we have to change what we are purchasing to make sure that we are still getting a great investment and creating a great investment opportunity. And I've very much shifted. Well, my focus anyway was commercial to residential, and that's very much the area that a lot of people have shifted into now. So I think that's what you're going to talk about. You've got some slides, don't you?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. So I'm going to jump off. I'm going to sit in the background and enjoy your slot here if you need me, but over to you.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. So as Hayley said, obviously we're a British Living group. We are a total hands-off property solutions company. So we we set up in 2017 to cater to international investors. So I started off buying my first HMO, which was actually my first investment property. I was working in a corporate job, and I always wanted to get into property, but the first thing on my list, as most people's, is to purchase my own home. And I've been saving up for a few years, so we had a good, a decent chunk of deposits saved. And kind of the first year when we were ready to buy, that whole year went past, didn't see anything that we liked, so we did buy. Another year went on again, and we still hadn't found anything that we liked personally for ourselves. And obviously we had some more savings, and that built up. And by the time it got to 2016, we were thinking, we've now got essentially 2 lots of deposits almost saved up, and we still haven't found anything we like because we're quite fussy people in our own homes. But we thought, let's just get something, like a 1-bed flat that we can just buy to let out, and at least have that money deployed and not just sitting in the bank earning 0.15% interest or whatever it was at the time, which would actually be pretty good these days because most savings accounts now are 0.05, not even 0.1%. So I started looking into buying a property to let, and the more I read, the more I realized I didn't really know what I was doing. And you hear all the horror stories, and that's, I thought, right, let's just do it properly, get some education, do some training. I did training through a company called Legacy Education back then. And it was one of the best things I ever did, because at least it showed me all the rest of the different strategies that you have available, and really prepared me to prepare the offer, go about it properly, and set a correct strategy for getting started. So with cash flow being the goal, we thought, well, HMOs, that's the way to go. And the opportunity came up. So we bought, our first project was a 7-bed HMO. It was sort of straight in at the deep end in terms of residential HMO conversions. And we did a loft conversion, a rear extension. We took it from a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house up to a 7-bedroom, 7-bathroom. So it was a pretty extent, and it was full back to brick refurb. We needed planning permission to go to C4 sui generis. So it was the whole lot in the first project. And but it taught us so much. So through networking, people obviously saw the project, and other investors simply said, well, that looks really good. If you come across another one, can you let us know? And we'd love to buy it. And that's sort of how the sourcing business started. As it grew, obviously we had to include things like project management, interior design, liaising with planning departments, HMO licensing, working with subcontractors on electrical and plumbing specifications, because a lot of builders don't really know what requirements there are for HMOs specifically. So that's where project management becomes really important, and all the way through to the lettings now as well. So quite a recent addition to the group of companies. We've got a 50% share in a company called Level Lettings, which takes care of all of our lettings. So we've developed that whole pack specifically for international investors and people who want hands-off investment. So we can offer small parts of it or everything as a whole. And our areas that we cover, which we'll get onto next, we're based in Nottingham, and we cover the East Midlands. So what we do, obviously, I've just covered the large majority of that, design and furnishing being on top of some of the usual services provided by a property sourcing agency. And obviously having our own invested interest in a letting agency now as well. The general feedback we've had from our clients has been that, it's a good thing that we also have an interest in the lettings on the back end. If we're the ones doing the sourcing and the project management to deliver these things, we're not going to be sourcing and building a headache that we're going to have ongoing as well. So it's in our best interest to source a good property in a good area, and obviously deliver a quality refurb if we're going to be, hanging on to those rooms afterwards and looking after all the maintenance, and obviously tenanting those as well to produce the rents that we predicted on the front end. So not necessarily everything in-house, but we have an interest all the way through the whole chain. Then the areas that we cover, as you know, obviously we cover the East Midlands, and our primary areas that we focus on, although we're based in Nottingham, I'll just give you a quick overview of our sort of three main target areas, which are three very different markets and produce three different types of tenants as well. We're based in Nottingham, and that's arguably, we like to call it the capital of the East Midlands. It's the largest city, and it's very diverse. You've got about 300,000 people, so it's a good sized population, but it's got a very strong student presence because there's two major universities, which is the University of Nottingham and Nottingham Trent University, which used to be a technical college, which was obviously upgraded to university status a number of years ago. Both of these universities are top 100 in the world, and Nottingham Trent University just recently won an accolade for the best in business and also in, sorry, I just forgot the other category now. There was one of the creative category around arts, and it won University of the Year for the UK. So there really is a central point as one of the major cities in the UK for attracting students. So of the 300,000 population in Nottingham, there's 70,000 students. And of that 70,000, there are 22,000 international students, which is an exceptionally high percentage of international students. And that's because of obviously both universities sitting in the top 100 in the world. That naturally produces a very diverse, educated, qualified young workforce straight out of university. And a lot of them like to stay in Nottingham as well, because it's a city that's very well known for its nightlife, and it's a very good place for young people to live. So it retains a lot of that talent as well. So in terms of pinning down a specific industry that Nottingham caters for is quite difficult because it is so diverse, but it's predominantly known for its medical practices and medicine out of Queen's Medical University, business and finance out of one of the Nottingham Trent campuses, and also the arts and creativity and design, also one of Nottingham Trent University's campuses. So it's very diverse, and it really attracts a lot of inward investment, especially international investment to the East Midlands. Naturally, house prices are a little bit higher than everywhere else because you get a lot of good capital growth because of the business investment into the area. So naturally, yields are a little bit lower. So I like to call it a phase 2 investing area in terms of strategy, because usually your phase 1 goals will be to create good cash flow. And usually you have to choose. You can either have a good yield to produce a good cash flow, or you can have good steep capital appreciation on the value of the property. You can't have both, because as the values go up, obviously the rents will go up as well, but generally in a high appreciating area, the values will exceed the rate the rents increase. So naturally your yield starts dropping, but in the long term, your property values will carry on getting higher and higher than a higher yield area. So to cater to the higher cash flowing strategies, our secondary areas outside of those, excuse me, are Derby and Mansfield. As you can see marked on the map, Derby slightly over to the west, which crosses over the M1. So one of the key things for the East Midlands is the M1, which is the main motorway which joins the south to the north. And it sits obviously fairly central in the country, and the Midlands obviously sits in the middle as well. So we're in a very geographically strategic location for logistics and warehousing. So across the whole of the East Midlands, there's a good set of demand for warehousing and logistics, which that sector employs a lot of HMO demographic tenants. So they're in the correct earnings bracket for HMOs. They generally hold the correct types of jobs, and there's a good set of demand given to us for providing these HMO rooms by these large employers. We've actually got 2 big Amazon warehouses here in the East Midlands. One's just near Derby, near East Midlands Airport and East Midlands Gateway, which is one of the largest logistics parks in the UK. And there's a new Amazon warehouse that's just opened near Mansfield. Again, in Summit Logistics Park, which is now, but it's not a very huge one. It's got three big warehouses on it, but they claim that they're the most advanced warehouse in terms of a distribution technology in the UK. So, and that's quite a recent addition. It was only a few months ago that it opened, and Amazon took up 3,000 jobs just outside Mansfield. So really strong in terms of catering for that sector. The main part of the economy that drives warehousing and logistics is online sales, and obviously that's not going to be slowing down anytime soon. So Derby has another industry which it largely caters for as well, which is manufacturing and engineering, and that's really what Derby's been built on. So it's also a city classification, and you've got a population of around 200,000 people and a very well-established old university too. Obviously, the main difference between Nottingham and Derby is the size of that university and obviously the students that it produces. You've got a student population of around 18,000 in Derby, and it's mainly engineering and design. Derby's really built on aerospace manufacturing, rail manufacturing, and previously automotive as well. And the two major employers in the area are Bombardier, who are arguably the bigger of the two, and they produce most components and whole rail systems for most of the trains across the UK, a large amount across Europe, and a large amount across Africa as well. And one of their main pulls for us, which makes us feel really safe about Derby as an area, is they've just won an 11-year contract with the Egyptian government to build a new railway across North Africa. And all of the manufacturing is being done in Derby for that. All the design and manufacturing is being done in Derby for that whole system through Bombardier. So again, their jobs, they're always recruiting, and obviously the closer we can get to their manufacturing plants, the better in terms of HMO rooms. And fortunately, there is a decent amount of stock in Derby as well. The other major employer is Rolls-Royce. They've actually just closed one of their operations, obviously in light of the aerospace industry taking a big knock recently. They obviously lost a few contracts, but a lot of that uptake, a lot of those jobs have been taken up by Bombardier, because they're both in manufacturing, they're both in engineering, so the skills are easily transferable. So we haven't really seen any impact on the rental market yet from that Rolls-Royce closure, but it's something that we're always preparing for. So we are focusing on sourcing closer around Bombardier now, because a lot of the Rolls-Royce sites are a little bit further out of town. So they are a little bit, if you've got a house close to Rolls-Royce, it is a little bit further away from the city centre, whereas the Bombardier factory is close into the city centre. So you've got multiple use properties where you can cater for people working in town, or you can cater for people working at Bombardier. So we've refined that target to obviously cater for the changing market. Then Mansfield, just going into a little bit more detail, that is largely logistics and warehousing. When you drive into Mansfield and Sutton and Ashfield, as you come off the M1, basically from the M1, as you turn off it, it's just a constant stream of big warehousing and logistics parks. And new ones are being built all the time. So obviously, as I mentioned, the demographic, generally the type of people who work in those warehouses are our ideal HMO tenants. So the demand is increasing. And fortunately, that's also the cheapest area. So house prices are still pretty steady. You don't get a lot of capital growth in that area because it is a cheaper area and it's traditionally a little market town. So there's not a lot of big business that operates in that area besides their distribution and logistics. So good news for us in that we are seeing rents rising already. And we've had record room lets in these last couple of months in terms of the rental rates. But the house prices are still remaining pretty much the same. So the yield's actually improving slightly for that area. So Mansfield and Sutton Ashfield, smaller areas, you've got a total population there of about 160, 170,000 across it's sort of three little villages together that make up the Mansfield area, and but very good tenant demand. So that's what I say, that's generally a focus point for your starting areas would be Mansfield or Derby for some really good cash flow and good yield. And then once you've reached your cash flow targets, then we can start moving you closer down to Nottingham city centre, where you get really high capital appreciation and really high value properties, which will add that equity and build your wealth in the longer term. So let's move on to the next slide. So across that area, we did also used to cover South London. So around Croydon and Thornton Heath was a key area for us. This was back in 2018 and sort of just on the front end of 2019 before we started reducing our involvement in that area. Main reason for that is that it's covered by an Article 4 direction now, which was only introduced in January. So that what an Article 4 direction means, I'm sure Hayley might have covered this in previous videos, but typically here in the UK, we would operate under permitted development rights as much as possible. And permitted development rights allow you certain things without planning permission. So if you want to do a rear extension to your house or a loft conversion, or in our case, converts a house from a single occupancy house into multiple occupancy, so an HMO, these are really common and popular planning applications. So fortunately, the government's created a set of permitted development rights, which allows you to conduct these really common planning activities without planning permission. So we like to stick under those, avoid the planning process wherever we can, just because it's quite a lengthy process. But an Article 4 direction, if that's imposed onto an area, it's usually imposed if there's a huge amount of demand or perhaps an exceptionally low quality of stock that's existing in the area that removes those permitted development rights. So then even small processes have to go through a full planning permission process so the council can ensure that the quality is going to be lifted up or they're not going to oversaturate certain areas. So Nottingham City Centre is actually covered by an Article 4 direction, which also created that scarcity, which is why the value is always so high, because the demand is obviously very high, but the supply is restricted. The same has been applied to most boroughs in South London now. So it makes it very difficult to buy anything at a decent price to be able to convert into HMOs, exactly how our strategy is. So we actually pulled out of that area during last year, but we're still, we keep an eye out for opportunities as they come up. So of the 34 projects that we've completed over the last couple of years, 7 of them were down in Croydon, and those values are obviously a lot higher than the Midlands because it's London. So it skewed our average project size a little bit. Usually our projects' average sizes are around 250 to 300,000. And like I said, the more jobs that we get done here in the Midlands, the more that becomes realistic. So at 327, that is a higher figure than usual. It's usually between 250 and 300. So as I mentioned, obviously we've done 34 of these HMO conversions now. So we're fairly well versed in what's required and what the ideal type of property is and what the ideal budgets are to produce a good yield. It's a little over £11 million in total, and it's just over 240 bedrooms. Like I said, we only recently started the letting agency, so unfortunately we don't manage all those rooms. We only manage a small portion of them now from this year. But again, it's allowed us to experience a lot of tenant activity and a lot of different tenant types and demographics, and obviously deal with a number of incidents. So, when it comes to HMOs, we've seen a lot of what can go well and also a lot of what can go wrong as well. So investing with us, we like to think that we can give you the ability to leverage our experience from these last 4 years worth of mistakes and bumps and bruises across these multiple projects, and obviously our knowledge of the area. And one of the most important things is our connection with the local trades to make sure that these places can get built. Because it's all good and well finding something that works on paper, but as a lot of the old sayings go, anybody can come up with a great idea, but it's all about the execution. And that's where partnering with somebody who knows the local area and you can build a trusting relationship with over a period of time. That's where that becomes really relevant and really important. So again, it's very easy to find a good property, but the real results come in actually executing and delivering on that property and getting it produced and getting it let to produce that ROI that you're looking at on paper at the start. So our goal is to take care of all of that side of it for you so that you can focus on your financial strategy, your risk levels, and obviously your risk appetite, and focus on building that cash flow pot. So this is coming on to the commercial conversions part of the discussion. As Hayley mentioned, obviously the market's changing. There's a lot of demand around sort of under £100,000 properties. Everybody's piling into that bracket, so people are overpaying. And nobody likes competition in business. So we're doing our best to try and remove ourselves from that price bracket now. Obviously, sometimes it's meaning creating JVs, or bringing in more angel investment to pool funds and get into slightly bigger projects than we usually would. But it's certainly where we're buying at much better prices, and in some cases, like these two pubs, the lowest prices we've ever paid per square foot for property in the UK. Obviously, commercial property is much more closely linked to what happens in the economy and what happens to businesses, because obviously those are businesses, premises and businesses that reside in these properties. So as there's an effect from the economy that runs down through different business sectors, commercial property generally acts almost straight away to these things, because as soon as a business starts struggling, they'll struggle to pay the rent comes down, the property value comes down with it as well. Commercial properties are generally valued on a yield basis, so regardless of what the bricks and mortar are, they're going to just look at, right, how much rent is this property generating? That's what it's worth. So that's good news for us, because in some sectors, obviously, these properties have been sitting vacant for ages, and a lot of people do just like to land bank things and just sit and think, one day we'll get a tenant in there. But in certain sectors, like obviously the pubs and the leisure sector, and certain parts of retail, and obviously certain parts of offices as well, they've really been affected by this pandemic. So there are a lot of those businesses who, most of them were struggling before lockdown, and them closing was inevitable anyway. And I think lockdown was just a nail in the coffin, because a lot of these pubs are a little bit outside of town centres, or just down the road, so not really in good high streets positions where they're going to get a lot of foot traffic. These are the types of things that we're finding are coming to market, or the businesses are closing because that foot traffic's not there anymore, and it's probably not going to be there for many years to come. So obviously selling is the thing to do, and luckily these are generally pretty big old places. So usually in the Midlands, we try and purchase stuff outside of city centres. I'm talking, a 5-minute walk from a city centre. We don't like to pay more than about £100 to £120 a square foot. So that's around about £1,000, £1,100 a square metre. And that's in a residential house. So because the residential prices have gone up, we're now paying sort of £1,200–1,300 a square metre for a residential house to convert into an HMO. But the issue is that in a lot of these areas, the end value is that the bricks and mortar end value is only about £1,600 or £1,700 a square metre. So you don't have a lot of profit margin there by the time you've spent money on the property converting it. You used to if you were buying under £1,000 a square metre. These pubs and a lot of the office space and stuff, which we have under offer now, and I say these two examples, which I'll go over next, were both purchased at around about £600 a square metre, or nearly £50 a square foot. So exceptionally cheap, touching on half price for what we're paying for residential houses. So once we convert into a residential use class, you're now in the same category as the rest of the residential buildings around, where you're going to be valued up around £1,700–1,800 a square metre. So there's a huge profit margin in it to be able to spend on the property. Obviously, you spend more on them as well to convert them, but you've got a much bigger margin to work with. So it really produces a much better return, and they're obviously also much bigger properties. So the yields are very good. So let's look at the Checkers, and this was the first one that we did just early on into lockdown in March. This was obviously an existing pub. The business had closed about 6 months before lockdown, because it's just outside of Hucknall Town Centre, which is a really busy town centre. It's just on the outskirts of Nottingham. It's actually the last stop on the tram, because Nottingham City has a tram line which runs out. And a really good area, fairly quiet road. It's just on the end of the high street, so it's really practical location as well. And we found we could convert it into 20 bedrooms. It wasn't actually a 20-bed HMO. We ended up getting 2 4-bed HMOs, 2 5-bed HMOs, and 2 studio flats out of it to just compartmentalize the living a lot better. It's always better to have slightly smaller units, but we got our 20 bedrooms. We paid 245 for it. It's around £600,000 project total, and it's just been valued at £720,000. So there's really good chunk, over £120,000 worth of equity in it. And obviously the cash flow it's generating is over £9,000 a month gross rent, and which is, you know, over £100,000 a year in a single property. And because of the equity that we've got in there, even with the big mortgage on it, which brings the cash flow down to just under £40,000 a year net cash flow after the mortgage, that's a 63% return on the investment for the capital that's employed in that property, which is exceptionally high. And that's only down to the purchase price per square foot which we have, because although all the other HMO conversion costs are pretty similar no matter what type of property it is, the main difference is that we're buying at a really good discounted rate per square foot. That's the floor plan. So obviously with pubs, they're all different shapes as they get extended over the years and they get added on and bits get removed and reduced. So often we come across pubs which are really strange shapes, which are very difficult to work with. So we always try and look for something that's a good rectangular or as square a shape as possible with as many windows around it as possible. And they make ideal shapes. So this one was ideal. The Twitchell and the second one we did was perfect as well. And the Pheasant, which is currently in planning, all pretty much the same layout. So we look for around about 400 odd square meters in terms of total size and a good rectangular layout. And that will allow us to get pretty much the same numbers on each of these. So this is an example of a normal 7-bed residential property in comparison. So this was a really good deal. So these were typical deals that we were, you know, our bread and butter. The sweet spot for residential HMO conversions in terms of your return, they're generally paying around about 120 to 140,000 for the property in a really good location. That'll normally be a 3 or a 4 bedroom house. In this case, it was a 3-bedroom terraced house with 2 bathrooms. We can then do a loft conversion with the dormer, which is when you convert your loft space. So if you're looking at your roof side on, a dormer window lifts the back of the loft up like that. So you create a lot more internal space. Rear extension as well. And that normally brings up to a project total around about that sort of between 250 and 300,000. So in this case, it was 274. And the end value came back at 315. So usually these value up around about 300,000. This one was quite a good spec because we actually did triple glazed windows in this one to help with energy efficiency, and an MVHR system, which is mechanical ventilation with heat recovery. This helps recirculate hot air that's recovered from bathrooms and from the kitchen, recycles it down as fresh air into the rest of the property, and obviously helps with heating. So that gave us a bit of bump on the normal value. And yeah, that one was, like I said, really good. 30% ROI on that, and that's only half of what these pubs are producing to buy at the right price. But again, the project is more than twice the size. Then that's the typical layout. So these are the properties which, again, obviously formed our bread and butter, which we are still on the hunt for. So it's not that we've stopped looking for them. It's just that there's not as many available at the right price. So our focus is now on finding the replacements for them in the meantime. But that's a typical layout where we just convert the 2 reception rooms on the ground floor into bedrooms, nice big kitchen and dining space at the back, and then bedrooms and bathrooms all the way up to the 1st and 2nd floor. And we have a video for you as well. Oh, sorry, I see we've got a few questions there. Oh, no. So I was having a look at the chat, but we've got a video to play. This is just an example of the specification. So as I mentioned, obviously, the properties have to be done to a very good standard. These are competitive markets. Nottingham is the most competitive because of the diversification across it. Derby, because of its HMO market growth, has become almost as competitive now. There are a lot of rooms available, but fortunately for us, a lot of them are amateur investor rooms, which are just done to a very basic standard. And there's a lot of competition in that sort of okay and just sort of nice room category. To get the premium rents and to ensure that your occupancy is really high, the specification's got to be really high as well. So decoration and furniture is really key for creating these spaces that people are really happy with and want to continue living in and are happy to pay the asking price for. So just an example of that. This is our latest one. This is the 7-bed, 14 Avondale Road, which we just showed you, which we finished earlier this year. It's obviously fully let, at some really good rates. So I'm just going to get that to play for you guys. Here we go. Play video. Right, did everyone get that okay? Right, I'm just trying to get back to the presentation. And there we go. Cool. So like I said, I'll just talk you back through that video quickly. So we create one of those for most of the properties that we do. Obviously on some of the smaller budget properties where it's maybe a 4-bed HMO or a single let, you've got to really watch the budget on those. So there's not always an extra £400 to £500 to spend on a nice fancy HD video like that. But we create those videos. We do individual videos for each bedroom as well, and obviously a full set of professional photos. So our spare room adverts and all the Facebook ads for the listings for the rooms are really professional. We've got your full own room video and also a full set of photos with all the specification description as well. So it's as complete an advert as you can possibly get. And that's really played to our advantage now through lockdown, where it was pretty restricted with people organizing viewings, because they were able to really immerse themselves in the bedroom before they actually came around into the house viewing. So really important. Sometimes it seems like a lot of money to spend £400 to £500 on a video, but it pays itself back, many times over when it comes to marketing those rooms. So again, that property, we wanted to have that really sort of good, comfortable wellness theme. That house is actually an eco house. It's owned in an SPV called Eco Live. And the focus of that is to create not only energy efficient and sustainable properties, but also create a very cohesive and happy with a wellness promotion living space as well. So that was very light and airy and comfortable, and so obviously the number of plants and things in there. Cookbooks provided, yoga instruction books provided, cooking classes once a quarter. So really, really nice property, that one. And like I said, fortunately gone at some of the highest rents that we've seen in Derby. So moving away from that into this commercial space, obviously the end product is the same. Those rooms, that look, that style, that feel is obviously just going to be put into these commercial buildings now. So again, we've done the two pubs and obviously the one that's in planning now. And this is our first office block. So this one we've actually just got on this week. We've had our first offer on it yesterday, which fingers crossed is going to be accepted today. But it's not sold until it's sold. So it is technically still available until we've actually got it all tied up and done. But this is what we're having a big focus on for finding more of, especially in Nottingham city centre. There's a lot of offices, really nice, sort of prime location, and in this case, a listed building. So this is grade 2 listed, but fortunately already has planning permission to convert the whole thing to residential. So always one of the concerns with commercial property is getting residential use on the ground floor, because usually councils like the ground floor to remain commercial, so that it can be a shop or a hairdressers or something like this, so that passing foot traffic can make use of that space. If you're off on a side road or something a little bit hidden away that doesn't get as much foot traffic, it's much easier to get these converted into residential because there isn't a lot of passing trade anyway. Fortunately, this is the case with this office building. So it's already got its planning permission for residential from top to bottom, but it's for 3 flats. The scheme just doesn't work as 3 flats, which is what the current owners got in terms of planning permission. It's just not viable because 1-bedroom flats don't value up so well. So you're in a little bit of negative equity by the time you bought it and built out the whole space. So we've taken it on. We're going to be converting those 3 flats into a 6-bedroom HMO. And again, the building doesn't need a heck of a lot of work because offices are really ideal for these ads because they usually have good suspended ceilings. So there's plenty of space for drainage to add on suites. And they're generally nice square shapes as well with lots of windows. So you've got plenty of space to just add some stud walls, create some partitions to make bedrooms and bathrooms, and it's a pretty easy process. So yeah, this one is a 6-bedroom. The main thing here is that there's a lot of equity in the deal. So we've got it secured now for 167,000. It's about 154 square meters. So it's just under £1,000 a square meter. So pretty similar price to what we normally pay for a residential property. But this is in a conservation area, in an Article 4 area, right in a city centre. So, and it's grade 2 listed. So the value of this property is always going to be, really high, and it's always going to continue to be at the top, the very top of the city markets. Obviously, the reason it's low now is because it's a vacant office building and there's no foreseeable demand coming for it anytime soon. So we've been able to pick it up at a real bargain. GDV very conservatively on this should be around 350,000, and our project total is only 270. So there's a lot of good margin in it, and it's still going to generate over £30,000 a year in gross rent. Even with the big mortgage on it, you'll still be taking home nearly £9,000 net profit on that. And the ROI, as you can see, is ridiculous. So this is where I feel the opportunity is coming in the UK, is in these commercial properties, which are not going to have a continued use for the next couple of years, in prime locations, obviously purchased at the right price. So we get a lot of offers out each week to make sure that we're buying at the correct square foot rate, because in the long run, that's what's ultimately going to determine when you're going to get that money back out of the property, whether it's going to be 2 or 3 years down the line, or whether it's going to be 10 years down the line. So that's just a quick example of the floor plan. As you can see, it's not a massive place, but key location, beautiful building, really high demand area. So the rents on these, again, the ceiling price will always be the very top of the market because of its location. So that's hopefully given you a bit of an overview of the types of properties that we've changed our strategy to. Again, shifting the focus from purchasing residential to purchasing commercial and converting into residential to give us that extra margin and that extra buffer for creating profits, I think is where the opportunities are going to be going forward. Obviously, the only downside compared to our previous strategy is that the projects are nearly twice the size in terms of the capital required. Not always in the case of that smaller office block, but usually they are about twice the size of something residential. So I think that's good because it's going to help people obviously work a little bit harder to create a pool of funds, or create JVs where previously there may not have been JVs created, and really help us to obviously make sure that the opportunity doesn't pass. Accommodation is created where it's desperately needed here in the UK. Shortage of housing is an age-old problem in the UK, and as you know, it's not a massive island. There's not a lot of space for new houses anyway. And I really believe HMOs and blocks of flats are the way to go, and that's the future of living. So hopefully we can make use of a lot of these vacant buildings and put them, make them new homes for people going forward. So we work, as I mentioned, obviously with international investors. We've worked with people from a number of different countries, as you can see, all of which have different anti-money laundering laws and forex issues to deal with. So we're quite well versed in dealing with not only cash funds coming from overseas, but also overseas investors bringing borrowings from overseas banks as well, and also working with local banks to obviously borrow on these property projects. So when it comes to bridging finance, development loans, mortgages, and any other type of private finance that you might have arranged, we've covered most already. And if we haven't, I'm pretty sure we'd be able to get our heads around it and structure the deal and the schedule accordingly. If you want to obviously get on to see some of these deals, I'm sure Hayley's going to be giving you all the correct information here on where to take advantage of these, and a little bit more information on keeping in touch with us. But our website is just britishlivingroup.com/deals. That takes you to the deal the deal mailing list. And on our website as well, there's a gallery with a few videos and things and some other examples of the stuff that I've just gone over if you want to refer back to anything. But it's a really simple process. We also have a full detailed investor registration list, which is a big form, which captures information like your capital available, your employment status, your residential status, all of these details. It is quite a lengthy form. We find generally people don't like filling it in, so we created the shorter one as well, which just gets you on the mailing list. You set up a call with us afterwards, and either myself or one of my team will give you a call, and we'll just talk through all of those so we've got a proper understanding of your strategy. So if you want to head over to britishlivingroup.com/deals and sign up there, you'll start getting our deals through, and we'll give you a call to book you on to get all your details. And yeah, that about sums it up for us. That's a slightly compressed version of some of the guys in the team. Yeah, obviously we'll go to questions now. Hayley, I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd like me to add on there.
No, James, one of the things I love about you is you leave no stone unturned. I never have questions for you because you answer them all. But no, that was an excellent presentation and some really great projects that you've been working on as well. And I 100% agree on the commercial to residential definitely being the space moving forward, and better opportunities there, and less competition. Yeah. So yeah, so it's all good. So I know that I'm certainly going to be speaking to you about some projects that perhaps I can work on. But guys, like James said, reach out, get onto his mailing list, have a look at the deals, get those fact finds forms filled out so that James can understand what you're looking for, and then he can make sure that that's very much what they're delivering to the table. But it was an awesome session, James. Absolutely fantastic. Nobody has any questions, which never happens. So guys, now is the time if you do have any questions. But if you don't, then James has popped his website. He did go through his website. That's where you will register to get onto his mailing list. If you struggle with that, you can come to Your Freedom Empire. So just pop over to admin and we can, are you happy for us to share the slides, James?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can share the slides, and of course within the slides is James' contact details as well. But James, that was fantastic. We don't have any questions coming through. You've stunned everybody. Like I said, that never happens. We normally have questions, but maybe they're scared off from the slit throat thing. Give us a look again.
That's a lot they're trying to drive the price up.
Yeah, are you actually wearing that all day today, or?
Yeah, I'm actually done for the day.
Yeah. Great. I mean, I'm going to have to take these off because I feel a little bit drunk because every time I move, my head's still wobbling. But no, James, we're going to say thank you ever so much. We've got comments coming through saying it must be down to Halloween that there's no questions, and that it's a great presentation, great video, and clearly, you know your area, your audience, and your stuff. So fantastic session, James. Thank you ever so much. I'm going to run through the updates with you guys, and then we'll call it a day and go off to enjoy our Halloween festive. season. Have you carved any pumpkins? Your baby's a little bit. What's your daughter's name?
Juliet.
Juliet, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's Roxy is your wife, isn't it? That's why I get them mixed up. But I think Juliet's a little bit young to be carving her own pumpkin. But is Daddy going to be doing one for her?
Yeah, that's it. We're going to get the little picture now. That's what this weekend. We went to the pumpkin patch last weekend and got everything we needed. So
brilliant. And does she have a pumpkin outfit?
Oh, yes.
There you go. I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures on social media. Enjoy your first Halloween with your beautiful family.
Yeah,
and thank you ever so much for your time this morning. Take care, James.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much for your time again, and we'll chat later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, so guys, what a great presentation. I think James is just awesome. Like I said, he leaves no stone unturned. If you do have any questions for him, he's the type of guy that will give you that time. So either reach out to him direct or come through us and we can put you in contact. We're all about just connecting good people with good people, and more than happy for you to just reach out direct as well. But fantastic. Right, so we don't have any questions. So guys, like I said, first time ever, we definitely must have scared you off with our awesome costumes this week. But guys, we have, I'm going to go through the events with you. So we have a Your Freedom Empire event. That is the Property Success Convention, which Pip Stellick is going to be hosting. I will be there as well. It is all things property. So if you are new to property, looking to get into property, you dabbled in property, but you want to know how to expand your portfolio quicker or learn different creative strategies, or you've actually come through training and you're not getting the support that you desire from your mentor or from the training organization that you've come through. We get a lot of people like that through, guys. Your Freedom Empire is very much here to hold your hand. Support is something that we do not lack in, and any of you on the call and anyone that's listening can always vouch for that. We are here, we give lifetime support, and that's very much why people come to us. So guys, this property convention is going to be really high energy. Pip Stellick is one of the most awesome people. Ace is his new nickname, but Pip Stellick is Ace, is a fantastic speaker. He's very motivational. He knows his stuff. He is going to be talking to you for 2 days, all things property, and we will have all of our Your Freedom Empire mentors on there as well. So it is a great networking event for you. It's great for you to come along and see what we're all about. If you do want to join, you can join for free. So the code is, if you just pop onto the website there, so the link at the bottom, so yourfreedomempire.co.uk/property success convention, and then you'll see the promo code at the bottom. It's blue. Click on that, type the code in, and that will zero the event down for you. But guys, it'd be great to see you there. There are many other events that are coming up as well, so there will be plenty for everyone to get joined in on. So we have that, guys. I'm really excited about that. A little bit nervous as well. It's the first big event that we are running, and the uptake has been massive. So we're really quite pleased about that. So Hayley's starting to get nervous now. But that's only because we want to deliver the best for you guys, and we will, as we always do. Of course, our platform, guys, which is Premier Investment Vault. If you want to register for that, that is www.premierinvestmentvault.co.uk. It is free for you to register. It is a sourcing platform, amongst many other things, but it will be where you can speak with agents, look at the deals that they have. It is free for agents and investors, and it is very much about connecting people and giving you guys boots on the ground to be able to exercise any strategy that you are looking to do. And then, guys, if you want to call, so I've got a couple of calls this morning, but if you want to call, it is a free call. So you can call in with me or one of our Your Freedom Empire mentors. if you just pop an email across to admin@yourfreedomempire.co.uk. It is a 30-minute consultation call. It is to discuss your situation. It may be a deal that you are currently in, or maybe just a question around your current portfolio or anything like that. It's not a sales call, guys. It's very much there as support through these tough times. That has been, we say week in, week out that we are going to stop these calls, but we have so many requests that come through that we just don't feel like right now is the time. But guys, if you want to jump on that call, pop an email across to us and we'll get you booked in. And then again, guys, we get quite low numbers now live, because many of you actually watch on the YouTube. So we actually get really quite high numbers on our YouTube channel. So this will go across to YouTube. If you do have questions and you can't make the live session, I know that with different time zones, people back at work and all things like that, it doesn't make any difference to us whether you are live or whether you watch the replay. But it does make a difference to you. So if you are not able to join us live, but you still want your questions answered, pop an email across to admin@yourfreedomempire.co.uk, pop webinar questions in the subject box there, and we'll get your questions answered and you can watch that on the replay. Of course, we do prioritize live questions. I think a couple of questions have come through. I know it's just thank you messages. We definitely did stun you all this week. But guys, it is Friday. It's festive, very exciting time. And I'm a big kid when it comes to Halloween. Well, actually, any holiday, any excuse to dress up. Albeit as a big fat pumpkin, but hey, you've got to laugh at yourself first. But guys, I'm going to have an awesome weekend with my family. We are going to be carving more pumpkins. Actually, I am sick of carving pumpkins at this point, so I will actually be carving for the last time this evening. But we have Halloween movies, movie night, pizza as always on a Friday. I hope that all of you have an awesome Halloween, fantastic weekend, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye for now.